On September 2nd, 2025, the U.S. military executed a decisive and highly coordinated strike against a vessel strongly suspected of smuggling illegal narcotics through the Caribbean Sea, a region long plagued by drug trafficking routes. President Donald Trump addressed the nation, announcing the successful interception of a boat originating from Venezuela. He called it a critical victory in the ongoing war against drug trafficking, highlighting the administration's commitment to national security and the fight against organized crime. Secretary of State Marco Rubio described the incident as a lethal and necessary strike against a dangerous narco-terrorist organization, emphasizing the threat such groups pose to both the U.S. and its allies in the region. Intelligence reports indicated the vessel was en route to a Caribbean nation where it planned to offload its illicit cargo for further distribution, potentially fueling violence and instability. The strike underscores the significant U.S. military presence in the Caribbean, where naval and Coast Guard forces are tasked with ongoing counter-narcotics missions, working around the clock to intercept illegal shipments. President Trump shared dramatic video footage of the military engagement, emphasizing the seriousness and resolve of the U.S. response to the growing threat of transnational drug cartels. The operation, conducted in international waters under strict protocols, was carried out with precision and without harm to any U.S. personnel, demonstrating the professionalism of American forces. This event signals a clear shift toward more direct and forceful military action in combating the flow of drugs from South America, sending a strong message to traffickers. By targeting a vessel linked to Venezuela, the operation has further strained already tense U.S.-Caracas relations, raising concerns about future diplomatic engagement. This high-profile event could reshape not only U.S. counter-narcotics efforts, but also the broader diplomatic dynamics across the Western Hemisphere, as regional partners watch closely. The U.S. strategy now includes more direct military action, setting a new precedent for protecting its borders and signaling a willingness to escalate operations when necessary. The strike represents a significant escalation in U.S. strategy to combat drug trafficking, marking a new chapter in the fight against international narcotics networks. The operation was meticulously planned by Southcom, targeting a go-fast boat tracked from Venezuela. U.S. intelligence identified it as a high-value target carrying narcotics. The engagement in international waters placed the action under high seas laws. President Trump released video footage showing the swift neutralization of the vessel. The strike involved advanced military assets, underscoring its lethal intent. This was an act of elimination, not seizure, sending a deterrent message to traffickers. The strike is a result of enhanced U.S. Navy and Coast Guard presence near Venezuela. The operation is presented as proof of the mission's success, moving beyond traditional law enforcement to a militarized approach. The strategy aims to dismantle trafficking operations at their roots, projecting American power and resolve. The targeted boat's crew were identified as members of the Tren de Aragua, a violent Venezuelan gang notorious for its ruthless tactics and criminal reach. This group has become infamous for its involvement in a wide range of illicit activities, from drug trafficking to extortion and human smuggling, making them a formidable force in the criminal underworld. The U.S. has designated Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization, a move that shifts the response from traditional law enforcement to a counterterrorism framework. This designation not only elevates the gang's profile internationally, but also unlocks new legal and operational tools for U.S. agencies. Originating from a Venezuelan prison, the gang has rapidly expanded its influence across South America, establishing cells in countries like Colombia, Brazil, and Peru. Their network now stretches far beyond Venezuela's borders, threatening regional stability. The U.S. views Tren de Aragua as a significant regional security threat, one that directly impacts American interests and the safety of its allies throughout the hemisphere. President Trump publicly linked the gang to Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, accusing him of leveraging the group as a tool of state policy to destabilize neighboring countries and challenge U.S. influence. This narrative frames the gang as a state-sponsored narco-terrorist organization, providing justification for more aggressive U.S. actions and international cooperation against them. The foreign terrorist designation empowers the U.S. to pursue the gang's members globally, working alongside international partners and agencies like Interpol to track, arrest, and extradite suspects wherever they may be hiding. The recent Caribbean strike is part of a broader campaign to cripple the gang's drug smuggling operations, which are a major source of funding for their criminal enterprise. The U.S. strategy is to dismantle Tren de Aragua's leadership and infrastructure, treating the gang with the same severity and urgency as other notorious terrorist groups. Each operation is a clear manifestation of U.S. policy in action, demonstrating a commitment to proactive measures and international security. By targeting the gang's logistics and financial networks, the U.S. aims to weaken its backbone, disrupt its operations, and cut off vital resources that fuel its expansion. The U.S. strategy involves dismantling the gang piece by piece, using intelligence, technology, and coordinated law enforcement efforts to systematically take down their network. Ultimately, the operation underscores the U.S. commitment to combating threats to international peace and security, reinforcing its leadership role in the global fight against organized crime and terrorism. President Trump confirmed the deaths of all 11 individuals aboard the targeted vessel, making a public statement that quickly drew national and international attention. These individuals were described as suspected members of the notorious Tren de Aragua gang, a group known for its violent activities and extensive criminal network across the region. The administration framed these deaths as a successful outcome in its ongoing fight against what it called a dangerous terrorist organization threatening U.S. security and regional stability. By labeling the suspects as terrorists, the administration justifies the use of lethal force, arguing that such measures are necessary to protect American lives and interests. The action is portrayed as a legitimate act of war against a declared enemy, emphasizing the seriousness of the threat and the resolve of U.S. forces to respond decisively. The death of 11 alleged gang members is hailed as a major victory in weakening the operational capacity of the Tren de Aragua, sending a strong message to other criminal organizations. The logic is that by increasing the risks and consequences for smugglers, the U.S. can deter future attempts to traffic drugs, weapons, or people by sea. However, the loss of life raises difficult questions about the rules of engagement, proportionality, and the ethical responsibilities of military operations at sea. Critics may question whether all non-lethal options were truly exhausted before the decision was made to destroy the vessel and end the lives of those on board. The incident forces a broader conversation about how to protect national borders while upholding legal standards, and whether eliminating suspected criminals without due process can ever be fully justified in a democratic society. President Trump shaped the public narrative, projecting strength and resolve. His blunt warning targeted both foreign cartels and a domestic audience. The strike video was political theater, making the threat tangible. Secretary of State Marco Rubio linked the operation to the fight against narco-terrorism. Rubio emphasized the regional threat and framed the action as necessary for protection. Support echoed through Congress, with lawmakers praising the decisive action. These statements build a unified political front, supporting the aggressive counter-narcotics policy. The administration's strategy is zero tolerance for drug trafficking and holding Venezuela accountable. Washington signals that this aggressive posture is a core component of its national security doctrine. The strike has intensified U.S.-Venezuela tensions, pushing them closer to hostility. Venezuelan President Maduro views the U.S. military presence as a provocation. The Trump administration accuses Maduro of running a narco state. The strike adds a military dimension to the pressure campaign against Maduro. U.S. officials state no immediate plans for direct military invasion, but tensions are high. The presence of U.S. warships creates a high-risk situation for escalation. Caracas sees U.S. actions as a slow-motion regime change effort. The incident entrenches animosity, making diplomatic resolution more distant. The Caribbean is becoming a geopolitical chessboard with severe consequences. The international community's response to the strike is mixed. U.S. allies quietly support the action, seeing it as a security effort. China condemns the U.S. military buildup as interference. Maduro uses the incident to bolster his narrative of American aggression. The strike is part of the U.S. strategy to pressure the Maduro regime. The military mission aims to sever financial lifelines to the Maduro government. Russia views U.S. and military activity as a challenge to its interests. The strike adds friction to U.S.-Russia-China relations. The Caribbean is now an arena for great power competition with global consequences. The strike illustrates the Trump administration's militarized counter-narcotics approach. The policy moves from law enforcement to direct military force. The strategy uses high-impact operations to deter criminal organizations. The issue is framed as national security, not just criminal justice. Designating drug gangs as terrorist organizations unlocks aggressive tools. The strategy involves disrupting trafficking networks from source to transit routes. Publicizing operations showcases the administration's commitment. The approach prioritizes eradication over prosecution, projecting uncompromising strength. The strike sets a dangerous precedent for counter-narcotics operations. It signals a major escalation, potentially turning smuggling routes into conflict zones. The incident hardens U.S.-Venezuela positions, making diplomacy difficult. The strike has implications for U.S. allies in the Caribbean and Latin America. Allies may feel uneasy about unilateral military force in their region. The incident forces regional governments to navigate a complex geopolitical landscape. The strike symbolizes a new era in the war on drugs, more militarized and lethal. It raises questions about sovereignty and the use of military solutions for complex problems. The broader impact may be a more volatile and unpredictable region.